I will do my best to get here and try to do it. Yeah, right. It's nice when I've got the volume break that should be okay. I'm going to be just sticking out the hall because I'm going to know this It's long cord, so it should be pretty close to that. Good, everybody see it.
It's the one that, no, the one on the right.
Yes, it's on right now.
All right, you ready to roll?
Rock and roll, baby.
Yes.
I know. No, I usually have things. Yes, yes.
Welcome. My name is Ross Reller. I'm one of Bill Warrick's first cousins. I'll give you a little context. So Will and Nina Reller of Richmond, Indiana, had 4 children and 10 grandchildren, and Bill and I are 2 of the 10. I have obviously many fond memories. Bill and I are far enough apart in age that my first memories of him are when I was 6 or 7 and he was 12 or 13. And I remember one time being at his house and wanting to go into the basement. And Bill wouldn't let me go into the basement because there were alligators. That is just one of many examples of what a prankster Bill was. Wonderful sense of humor, very creative in so many ways. And we're so thankful you're here. We want to celebrate Bill's life and give as many of you as possible an opportunity to share vignettes of who Bill was to you. I now want to introduce one of my other first cousins, Nancy Reller, to tell you a little bit about the way we are proposing to conduct this service. Oh, sure. I guess I'm going to switch to Caitlin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Caitlin Nassa, Ann Shager's daughter and Bill and Joan's niece. And I'm just going to share the 23rd Psalm with you all today. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepared me a table in the presence of your enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nancy Reller, and Bill was my cousin, and Ann is my dear cousin, and Joan, we're here in honor of Bill. And it's so wonderful to be with all of you. Bill asked that the service for him be in the Quaker tradition of celebration of life, and so my job is to explain to you what that sort of looks like. Because it may be unfamiliar to many of you, because it's a little less structured than what you might have experienced at other services for celebrating one's life. There's no more readings for a bit. There's no music right now. It's a time for us to gather together to remember Bill, both privately and collectively, both privately and publicly. And we will start off with some time of silence, actually, so that we can think quietly. You know, we don't do that very often in our society. We don't take time really to think. And being in this room together, situated as it is, very purposefully, we can see each other. I mean, these are the people who loved Bill. Not everyone. We have some people on Zoom listening in. But how special it is for us to gather together in his honor. So we will experience some time of silence and time for you to just think about Bill. And then after whatever time feels right, John Reller will start us off in sharing any memories that you have of Bill that you'd like to share, whether they're funny or sad or anything you'd like to share, because it helps us feel closer to him, I think, as we're gathered together. So if you feel so moved, and there's no obligation, there's no responsibility, but if you feel so moved, after John has spoken, you can simply stand up, and Ross will hand you the mic so that the people on Zoom can hear what you have to say. The other thing I was thinking about this morning or yesterday is what a good listener Bill was. I can just see him ask a question to one of us, and he would just sit there and really ponder what we were saying. So I think, again, in his honor, as people are speaking, let's let that settle in, whatever anyone shared. So there's no obligation to jump up quickly, but letting that sink in for each of us so we get to experience some parts of Bill that we might not have known. So let's, for the next several minutes, let's just be together in silence. And then John will lead us in that next section.
My name's John. Let's see, my dad and Bill's mom were brother and sister. She was the oldest and Dad was the youngest. So there was quite a bit of age difference between Bill and I, which allowed me to look up to him quite a bit, although didn't spend a lot of time with him in my younger years. And growing up in Richmond, a Quaker community, we had two Friends churches. We went to the church that had a programmed worship, and Bill's family went to West Richmond, which was unprogrammed, which was an hour of silence. And as I sat here, I got to thinking about, and I like the silence. It takes a little bit of time to get used to how to use it, but I wonder how Bill did in an hour of silence. It's kind of an interesting thought that came to my mind as I sat and dwelled about Bill. He was the guy that I thought was so cool. A real hippie in my younger years, and didn't live in Richmond much as I was growing up, but I was probably in my early 30s, maybe late 20s, when both he and I lived in Indianapolis, and I got to really be able to spend some time with him. And he moved me down the path of enjoying woodworking as a hobby, and we did a lot of projects together more recently than when I was a young father with kids, but Bill was always kind of there and a great advisor. And I really cherished that about him, but it was a little difficult for us to work together. My wife uses the term redneck carpenter. She felt I was a little bit of a redneck carpenter, and I did tend to try to get the project done, where he was a little bit more of a perfectionist, which kind of drove me nuts. And one of the pictures, he's helping me with the outhouse construction that I built, and I recall getting so frustrated and saying to him, "Bill, it's an outhouse." But that was Bill, and that's kind of the way I picked up that a lot of people recognized him, in particular the writings on the obituary page on the website. And clearly that was an effect on me as time passed, and partly because of Jones being in education and my being in education, our two couples spent a lot of time together and developed into Bill being clearly my best friend. And so it's tough not having him. But being family, I remember recently I was asking him about our grandparents and what he could recall about them. And he didn't have much as far as stories, except I'll share one that he told about Granddad. His parents had gone out of town. We'll see if Ann remembers this. And I don't know who was watching them, but in any event, he had taken the car and gone for a little drive. Probably a neighbor witnessed it and reported it. And it was Granddad's job to let him know, to discipline him. And so he shared with me how he had to wait for Granddad to come over and to go for a little ride with Granddad. Granddad gave him the story of, now other people can do that type of thing, but we expect more out of you. And that might have been part of what I think encouraged Bill to be a little bit of a rebel and to question the status quo, which is part of what I liked about him. And another story, which you probably would prefer I didn't tell, but when he was at Earlham, and he shared this with me one of the last times we were together, he and some buddies went to the drive-in. Well, they ended up taking the speaker as they left, got pulled over, had beer with them, and got arrested and booked in the whole ordeal. Well, being students at Earlham may have added to some of the interest on the part of the radio station, but in any event, the radio station apparently told that story for 3 or 4 days on the news. And where my grandmother comes into this story is, apparently she called the radio station and said, I think you've had that on enough. It's about time to stop. So that's a couple reflections on Bill. I was thinking last night, and some words that came to mind when I started thinking about him. Clearly, he was a coach and a mentor. As Nancy mentioned, and it's obvious that it's a very strong trait of his, a good listener and very focused when he listened. His charming laugh and his warm-hearted nature are the characteristics that I kind of remember with Bill.
Oh, very good.
Okay. Hi, my name's Freddie, and I'm a really close friend of Jones, and we've taught together for years at North Central. And then my husband Bob and I became really close friends of John and Bill's. And we had a little gourmet group and had dinner together once a month for years. And I was thinking about Bill, well, I've been thinking about it a lot, but yesterday I was thinking he was a rescuer. And so I'm going to give you 1 or 2 examples of that. So there was this bird sound, this is just a couple years ago, in our ceiling, and it just kept tweeting and tweeting and tweeting, and I didn't know how the bird got in there or how it could get out. So I called Bill, and he came over, and I said, Bill, what are we going to do? And he probably didn't care that much about the bird, honestly, but it was like he could see that I was upset. And so he said, how he would go, he would take that deep breath after he'd heard you, and he's listening to you, and his mind's working, and he said, okay, we can take out the ceiling light, and that, if the bird's up there, then it could escape. And so I'm moving all these papers around and moving things off the counter. He's getting the ladder, he's getting his tools out, so he takes out this light. And then it was like, oh my gosh, the tweeting has moved across the room on the desk. So it's like, Bill, what are we going to do now? And so, it's across on this desk, and he said, and it was kind of late in the day, and I said, it's going to get dark. What can the bird even get over there? And he goes, I don't really know how the boards go. And I said, I could take the drywall out. Well, God wasn't in favor of that. So anyway, he said, all right, we can put this light up. I'll plant this light, and when it gets dark, the bird will see the light, or it was dark up there anyway. Maybe we can get the bird out. And he talked to me about, I could open a window, leave that open, put a cover on that door. He's helping me with all this. And he said, Freddie, this bird really may not make it overnight. And it's like, oh, but maybe. And so the next morning, I don't know what had happened and transpired with me moving things around, but the bird is in another room. And it's gone to the next room, and we keep hearing it. I mean, we all heard this tweet. It was very consistent. So he comes over again, he takes down 2 lights now, because we don't know if it works this way or this way. And so 2 canister lights, and we're just really hopeful the bird will come out. And he was, I think he had to go to Menards and get something, and he was just so caring, and he knew how much that meant to me. And it ends up there was not a bird at all. It was a little thing with the electric fence that the batteries were in. And it was a little device for training, so every time he came, I moved stuff. And I was moving the tweet around. But anyway, Bill just, you could just see him going, and thinking, how am I gonna deal with this? How am I gonna solve this problem? What can I do? So he helped rescue a cat. One time there was a small fire in our living room. He and Joan, we were over at Christmas, and these votive candles, don't ever use them, the fire would say, and it caught these greenery on fire. So Bob and I are kind of like, ugh. And honestly, Bill just starts grabbing pillows and putting out the fire and taking care of it. So, and he built a ramp for my mom when she needed it for a walker. So honestly, he was a rescuer, and he was very, very kind and really cared about taking care of people and listening, as you said, listening to what they thought was needed or important, and then figuring out a solution. A very kind, loving man.
Okay, I'll go. Can I go?
Of course.
Okay. 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 What? Okay.
It's live.
Okay, now wait a minute. Let's move over here a little bit. Okay. I'm Joan Warrick, and I was married to Bill for 36 years. And Bill was a character. I'm sure you guys know that. But I remember, okay, where are the shoes? Shoebies. Okay. I remember, Steve, you remember this, I think. We were going up to Michigan, to your cottage up in Michigan, and I said, I am so tired of icky dates with guys. Really, I've had it. I have really, do you remember, Barb?
Oh, yes.
I've really.
I remember the icky dates.
That was so true. I mean, really, it was so horrible. And I said, do you guys know anybody, any nice person that you could introduce me to? And Barb, you said?
I said, I know this guy. And it was Bill Warrick.
I know, it was Bill Warrick, and you had, hadn't you hired him to
We
do work?
hired Bill to do work by way of Jim Hopkins.
Oh,
They
that's
were
right.
friends.
Okay,
It's all,
okay.
such a
Yeah.
small world.
Yeah,
And I just like Bill. I got a kick out of him. Like Freddie said, he was always fixing, he knew how to fix things.
yeah,
He
you
was
did know how to
amazing.
fix things.
And so then of course I had a little matchmaker streak. So I very subtly suggested, I think, that you should have Bill look at the 2 houses you were
That's
considering.
right, I forgot that that's.
So I am
happening.
responsible
You
for all
are.
this happiness.
You are. I know. Yeah, I don't know, I was living in an apartment or something, and I said, this is it, I'm not doing this. I want a house. I can't, it's making me crazy. And so you said, well, I know this guy, you could, you had houses that you thought you might like
You
to
had 2
buy.
houses.
2 houses.
He said, no, I'm not.
He did.
And I said, yes.
And yes to one. And yes to one. Bill was just such a character, as a lot of you know. For some reason, Bill loved the state fair. It was our first date, and I know. And I know really, who takes first date? Where's the wonderful dinner? We go to the state fair. And Bill was just, he was a riot there. He was so much fun. We had to go back, and I can't tell you how many times. I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I'm embarrassed. Well, oops. Bill loved going around on the little train. He did. He absolutely loved it. And then he would go into the, I don't know, the cow bar. No, there was the sow. It was Indiana's biggest sow. Bill loved that thing. It was just wonderful. He was a great guy. And, okay, where else am I going with this? I know, don't tell Bill. Bill and I were comrades. We just really got along really well. And I thought he was hilarious. And he was just a great husband. He really was. He really was. I mean, I don't even know, those of you who know him, probably know, would recognize that. Yeah, I will totally miss him. It's just, I mean, I can't even tell you how much I miss him. He was just such a great guy. I gave up the 2-car garage at our house. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, this is so great. There's a 2-car garage. I don't have to get up early and scrape anymore. Oh no. That did not happen. That became the shop. There was no going in there, no. Anyway, I really miss Bill. Bill was just such a wonderful, wonderful guy, perfect guy for me. And yeah, I was telling somebody about how Bill loved dogs. And so we had a Scotty. And I love that Scotty so much. I absolutely loved it. And so Bill started calling that Birdie Biscotti. Anyway, I'm going to the, Rich, where are you? Here's my brother Rich. I roped him into, we're going down to the pound tomorrow, and I'm getting a dog. Getting a dog.
I'm Steve Schubert. I'm part of, Barb was the matchmaker. Phil and I have been friends for decades. And the things that we really enjoyed the most were all motorcycle oriented. He was a motorcycle freak. I was maybe even worse, and still am. And we took many rides together. We rode to Colorado together and rode the mountains, and it was a wonderful experience. And we went down to the Blue Ridge Parkway numerous times, along with a couple of our mutual friends, and we rode. But those were all relatively tame rides. You know, when you're in Colorado, you just don't want to fall off the edge of a mountain. And down on the Blue Ridge, you got a 45-mile-an-hour speedway, and you just don't want to get arrested. And we didn't, except for the slowest person that rode with us, got arrested twice in 2 days, which was wonderful. And that was Andy's dad, Mike Cuff. And he was at the back of the pack, and we were all riding way too fast. And lo and behold, he got pulled over twice, and we thought that was terrific. But the most fun ever, and I don't know how many people really realize this about Bill, but he was extremely competitive. And you kind of get the impression when you first meet Bill, he's a pretty laid back kind of a guy. But we would go to Michigan, to our place where Joan was talking about, and it's up in the Manistee National Forest. It's 560,000 acres of woods. And there were trails throughout that area, and we had dirt bikes. And I noticed on one of the pictures up here, it shows Bill on a dirt bike. He's got the front wheel up in the air, and that was not unusual. We were either breaking bikes or breaking bones as we would go up there. And we would go up, and Bill would ride so incredibly hard. He did not want to be the last guy on the trail. He wanted to be the first guy on the trail. And some who know me well might also know that I'm a little bit competitive myself. And so here he and I would be out basically trying to, I don't know, eliminate one another, I guess. But he was a great friend, and he was a kind person, and he was always courteous. And as has been discussed today, he was a helper, and he would help us around our home whenever things needed help. I have no talent in that arena at all. He had all the talent in the world, and we're all gonna miss Bill. But we're not gonna miss Joan, because she's still around.
I'm sticking out, yeah, I'm hanging on.
And we'll be seeing Joan more. Thank you.
You don't have to worry about that. Mine's real short. My name's William Bittner, and I am the lucky beneficiary, as probably many of you are, with Bill's talents. And Bill saved, so I'm part of the Maley family here. And Bill, I've only known Bill for a couple years, and his workmanship was stellar. It's obvious, and I'm one of these people who can't do anything, and he can do all of it. But the thing that resonated with me was Bill's vibe. Bill had this vibe and this spirit about him, and we just had this connection. It was just like boom, and he got me, and I got him, and that was it. After that, it was just fun being with him, always. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susie Maley, and I met Bill through Claire Clark, one of my beloved clients and very good friends of Ann and Dick. In 2018, he was helping Claire Clark move, and I needed a handyman. I have a business that I work with seniors and downsize them to senior communities. And I just was at this point with a very high-end community that said, you really need to get your act together and start providing handyman services and hanging TVs on walls. And as God divinely guided it, in steps Bill Warrick, and I asked Claire Clark, would it be okay if I called Bill? I knew he works for you, but do you think that that's somebody I can use? And Claire's like, for sure. So Bill joined my team and has been by my side in my team until May of this year, when he had to step aside and concentrate on his health. And we know how that went. And it's been such a huge hole for my business, and our team misses him dearly. But more than my team, my clients. He touched, as Bill said, my brother-in-law, all my clients' hearts. He's, if you know me, I'm actually very high energy. So I would just give a description. I would go, Bill, you have to hurry up and hang on those pictures, and that TV's got to go right there, and like 8 inches, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, Susie, now, do I understand this correctly? He had this whole body move with me, and he would just slow me down and recenter me. And I don't know, that was how Bill worked through me. I don't know how he worked through everybody that he encountered, but he made me be present to the moment. Even though it was a pressure job, Bill brought me to center. And he has now worked for everybody in my family. So he's going to be greatly missed. And I just want to share that he became a dear friend. And in the end, I had to really focus on what he needed, not what I needed. And I just feel honored that this point in my life that God provided me somebody, not only on my team, but in my life, Bill Warrick. And I know we will all miss him. And his talent is evident in all of our homes. And Hector and I live in a house he did a lot of work with, and we always like builded that. And he will live on through us, through his work.
Hello, I'm Paul Gibby. I was married to Bill's sister, Camilla. She's in some of these pictures, it's cracking me up. But Bill never had kids, but I always felt that he was a great father figure for my sons, both of whom have some serious carpentry skills. So I'm sure that rubbed off on them. Bill was, before they were born, I really admired Bill for being a sort of a big brother type figure for me as well. The first time I met him at the airport when he was coming back from Oregon, where he was had fled as a hippie from his parents, I think. I thought it was funny that he named his dog after his dad, Bewley. Come here, Bewley dog. But just kind of, and I believe that one time, I may be wrong, but I believe that one time his dad went out there to visit, and he put him up in a converted chicken coop, which I think was also, anyway, that was good. But he loved his dad, of course, but they had their differences. And they had their similarities too. They were both, they loved to shop, loved to work on tools. But one side of Bill that I really loved from the beginning was when I learned that he had written these an advice, Dear Beauregard column in for Westtown. The Westtown's brown and white. I don't know, are there any people who've been to Westtown or were with Bill at Westtown? 63, I guess he graduated in 64. Anyway, I wish I could lay my hands on it. In fact, a few years ago, I approached the brown and white people at Westtown, and they sent me some digital copies, but I lost. So somewhere they're out there in the ozone on the internet. They're fantastic, hilarious, as you can imagine. People dealing with problems of being a high school student at Westtown. But he also traveled with his both sisters to Italy one summer, I believe, to do a transcendental meditation workshop. And I think it was kind of like a prison from what Camilla described to me. They kind of got up, had a small meal, then meditated. And basically, from what she told me, she and Ann would conspire on how they could get some chocolate at the nearby town, at the Jaya. And Bill was there too. I didn't hear too much about him and the chocolate, but he was inspired by that experience to write a little book called The Count of the Jaya, totally fictional. And I read it once. It had pictures that he had illustrated. And it just blew me away. It was so creative. Somewhere it's in some drawer somewhere, but I hope someone finds it because, yeah, he was just an incredible guy, wonderful person.
Is Dirk Bland here? Does anybody know Dirk? So as a lot of you know, Bill and Joan have a farm in Owen County, south of Spencer. And we're in the process of selling the real estate. And we decided the best way to merchandise a lot of the personal effects, including Bill's wood shop there, is through an auction. And it's online. And we vetted a number of auctioneers and we selected a gentleman named Dirk Bland. And when I had to call Dirk and give him the news of Bill's passing, he was very shook up. He said, Ross, I feel like I've just lost my new best friend. Bill and I really hit it off. And I was so looking forward to the next time I was going to visit Bill. And I think Dirk, even though he had only known Bill for a couple weeks, speaks for so many of us that he was our new best friend.
Russ.
Hi, I'm Ginger Lippert, and I have the pleasure of living next door to Joan and Bill. So the past 7.5 years, we've had just a wonderful example of a loyal and healthy marriage, people that just take care of each other. And we love sitting on our porch and watching them go on late night walks with the dogs, and we miss seeing that. So it was one of the most special things that I saw the day Bill passed away. The caregiver walked out that night holding Joan's hand, and it was the sweetest thing that she was still getting to have that moment. But I also want to say that Bill was my son Vincent's first boss. He told us last summer that this next summer he didn't think he'd be well enough to mow the lawn, and that he'd like Vincent to take over that for him. And so one day in May, Vincent got called to the job, and I was peeking from the windows, that mom, and I'm like, this is the first time he's stepping up to a responsibility like this. And Bill, we all know he was very meticulous, and he was out there following him every step of the way. And I'm like, I told my husband, BJ, I'm like, what have we got Vincent into? And I'm like, well, he survived. He was done the first time, and it was a good experience. And the next time he went out there, he followed him again. But eventually he got enough trust, and he was doing it well. And I had wonderful correspondence with Bill, even in the hospital, about making sure that Vincent was mowing the lawn. And his last text exchange with me, I had told him Vincent mowed the lawn and Joe got him paid accordingly. And his last words were, "I'm happy." And I feel like that's Bill. He was always just a happy, wonderful neighbor, and I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to know him. And Joe, we look forward to the next years with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Great neighbors, great neighbors.
Hi, I'm Bob Jacoby, Freddie's husband. We moved back to Indianapolis in 1984, and Freddie started working with Joan in Learning Unlimited and got to know Joan, and then soon after that got to know Joan and Bill, and really liked Bill. And I remember sort of, well, what do you do? What do you do? These kind of things. And he said, well, I'm sort of a carpenter, and I started to build some stuff, and I had a bright idea in that house at that time that I needed to have some furniture built. And so I talked to Bill about it, and he said, well, just do some drawings up. And I work with a lot of mechanical design stuff, so okay, I know how to design stuff. And at that time, both Bill and I did everything by hand, so I did what I thought was a reasonable facsimile of what I think I'd like to have built. And then Bill took it and came back, and oh yeah, I threw him a curve. And there's a wood called Purple Heart that's from South America. And I said, why don't we do this in maple with Purple Heart trim on it? And Purple Heart's pretty rare to find. And so he came back with just wonderful designs. And I said, wow, this is really good. He was, because I would tell him, my drawing is just a starting point. You know, it easily improved, I hope, by you. And it was. And I started at that time, I'm old school, so I started Bill Warrick file folder. And I looked at that over the years, because there were still a few things to do. So I knew he could do a cabinet maker, but I decided in another house we lived in, I'd collected a bunch of antique things like archways and chimneys and things that were all arts and crafts. And so I talked to Bill about it, and it wasn't so much drawing, but it was, well, Bill, how are we gonna fit this into a library and then a study? So Bill came back again with, just custom did everything to perfection. So it's the last one we've had. Unfortunately, we've been going through another house 30 years later, remodeling, and it sort of coincided with Bill having some health issues. So Bill said, yeah, I probably won't be able to do it, but I really want to see it. So Bill had been over with me 2 or 3 times. We talked about things, and he was so giving and so interested. And especially because some of the things I've asked him to do have not been typical. And he was always really accepting and just a joy to work with. So I will miss Bill an awful lot on future projects.
Oops. Hi, Barb Chip again. I just wanted to say that for many, many, many years, Joan and Bill hosted an annual Christmas Eve brunch for several of our close families. It was the Cubs and the Shoops and the Warricks, and we kept growing, and there were grandchildren, so it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and there were a lot of silly things about it, and those were the best. So that was a great tradition, and Joan and Bill always prepared this wonderful meal. It was always the same, and that was part of what was so great. But we will miss that. And we'll be having it at another place with Joan, but Kate will do it. Yeah, we've always made Kate. We've assigned it. It's been assigned, and we'll fully accept it. So we'll continue that, but it'll never be the same without Bill. And it was really a cool thing. And I'll also say he made the greatest salad ever. He was always assigned the salad. Yes, he made beautiful salad. So. Yes.
We want to continue this celebration of Bill's life in their backyard.
Oh, yeah.
You're all invited.
Fish ponds, fly, come on.
The address is in the program. Yeah. Amy?
I'm Amy Reller. I'm the youngest of the Reller cousins, 10. Ross and John are my brothers. My sister, unfortunately, isn't here. But at the family gatherings where I would keep an eye on Bill all the time, because I just wanted to be near him, wanted to see what he was doing, what he was eating. I was just so fascinated with him. But at all our family gatherings, we would always hold hands and do a unity prayer. And so I'm going to say the unity prayer, if you would like to hold hands with those around you, I'm sure Bill would appreciate that. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is.
I'm Ann, Bill's sister, and I appreciate all of you being here and the beautiful stories because they show a depth, don't they, of his character. One thing I would say, having been with him in the last days of his life, he was always very self-contained. He never complained. And when my husband and I found some of the little notes that he had written, he wrote a really beautiful prayer that I think was very meaningful in his final days and his day too. And it's written, I'm going to read it. And it's, Dear God, you've given me more days of a new life. I will discern this path with an open heart, asking hints of your guidance to the steps I take. We are all brothers and sisters in your unfolding creation. I will be wise in seeking your wisdom. And in those days when he decided to seek palliative care, I do feel that he felt that peace. And we were comforted by that knowledge too, that he had made that step of faith that we had asked of him. And he did, he made that decision very consciously. And I think he really recognized that the time had come and he wasn't really going to be able to get better. And so I feel a peace about that decision. As you all know, he was very present with all of us when he was with us. And I thank you for coming and sharing your memories, and we invite you to join at Joan and Bill's house momentarily. Thank you.
That concludes this portion of the celebration. Thank you.